Usually seeds don't grow in the light, they grow right in the center of the soil, in the depth of the soil. We really struggle with the dark night of the soul. Like in the West, we struggle with death because it's the unknown. We're in the liminal space, we're in the void. We don't know what's on the other side of the dark night of the soul. And we're not meant to, because we're meant to be in the washing machine, in that depth, in the fertile ground of darkness.
Beata Alfoldi is an international shamanic practitioner, medicine woman, seer, retreat leader, healer, keynote speaker, and author. She helps people heal, reclaim their power, and birth their most authentic nature using ancient wisdom and practices.
It takes a great amount of work to show up and be authentic. It takes a great amount of courage because not everyone is going to like us. The persona of the nice guy, the nice woman, I don't trust nice people. If you're constantly nice, you haven't done any work on yourself.
Spiritual bypassing, exaggerated niceness, false positivity, detachment from real pain is a persistent shadow of the New Age movement. You published this in 2022.
Beata Alfoldi, welcome to the show. I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation because your work has already profoundly impacted my life. And what people don't know just yet is that you are a modern day shaman.
Yes.
And when people think of shamans, I believe they think about feathers and costume and dancing around the fire and drinking plant medicine. Well, I wanted to start this by asking, what is a shaman? And what are maybe some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about shamans and shamanism?
What I would like to begin with, because I didn't want to interrupt you, is even though energetically and in the terms of the way that I work with energy and the land and the world of the unseen, I don't actually call myself a modern day shaman because the word shaman comes from the Tungus tribe in Siberia. So I usually say that even though I am a shamanic practitioner, the word shaman, it doesn't even belong to the Native Americans or the South American peoples. It is specifically from the Siberian culture of the Tungus tribe, and it's an Evenki word, which means one who walks between worlds or who has the power to move between worlds, whether that's in trance or whether that's through the art of healing. And the original word, people always have this misconception that shamanism is all about feathers and bells and whistles and drums and going wild around a fire. Now, even though these practices are a part of the shamanic arts, people that I know that are really walking a true path, which is the practices that are held within, I would say, the religion of animism, which is actually a practice. It's a very humble path, and it's a path of responsibility. It's a path of relationship with nature, with animals. It's also a path of reciprocity. And what do I mean by that is understanding that we grow in relationship. And wherever we go and wherever we move in life, how can we give back? How can we learn to give back in relationship to how much we take? So it's very much a path of relationship. It's very much a path of connection and cultivation of one's own personal spiritual path.
Well, check this out. I saw this earlier today and I couldn't really wrap my head around it. This shows that 93.9% of people who are watching the show are not subscribed. So I just wanted to ask you to double check if you have already hit that subscribe button. That's the best way you can support the show and everything that we do here. And that's pretty much the only thing I will ever ask you to do. So hit that subscribe button and enjoy the episode.
Are we still in touch with that kind of side of us, or is it something that we have forgotten over time?
I think, particularly in our Western culture, when we look at what happened with Christianity and how it really started to become the predominant and the dominant religion in the fourth and the fifth century, and what happened to all of our indigenous and earth centered practices in Europe. um, I definitely feel that in many cases, especially in Europe, modern contemporary cultures like Australia, America, and Canada, we have definitely lost this connection with shamanism, with animism. However, I will say this: there is an enormous resurgence of the shamanic arts, of earth centered practices, animism, um, the path of Druidism, Wicca, Celtic peoples. It is making a resurgence because we are wanting to reconnect, I believe, with our own indigeneity, our own roots, our own traditional practices.
And why do you feel that people want to do that now? Like, what's happening in the world that kind of like triggered us to wanting to seek that connection again?
I think a lot of things are triggering this. The rise in globalization, the rise in AI, whilst AI is a very powerful tool, what is happening, what I see happening a lot is people so often, especially if they're older, they're not sure whether the video that they're seeing is real, if it's unreal. We're seeing AI personalities, AI music being created, and when there is an AI personality, they're looking absolutely perfect, as well as what they're sharing, it's perfect. And what we're really missing right now is connection, community, and an understanding of where we are in relation to life. Actually, how am I in relationship with my immediate surroundings? Do I know the trees upon the land we stand upon? Have I actually looked at all the flowers? Do I have a relationship with the animal that I have a custodian of, our pets? So I really feel right now the way that we're living in these small houses that were created, the way that the elderly are just pushed away a lot of the time. And I understand that some people genuinely cannot support their elders, but it is this disconnection actually from even the aging process, which I feel is really asking for people. Um, and I see a lot with younger people this real drive to come back to community, to come back to connection, to stop relying on systems that are outside of the land, that don't respect water, that don't respect forestry or forests. And people are seeking this. Well, let's come back to community, because this is right now the power that I have available to me, especially if I'm doing it in connection or creating it in connection with the land and all of the non-human life forms that live on that land.
It's so interesting that you say that because I also feel that we are not just isolated in a social setting, but we are also isolated from our own true essence and our true self as well. I don't even know like what kind of trees are there on the land. I don't even know what kind of animals are out there. it's kind of just like taken for granted, like, okay, this is where I live. And also the way people live nowadays is that people live in isolation. Everybody has their own like small cubicle, and then like they completely isolate themselves from other individuals and from community. So I can also see what you are sharing, that there is an emergence of that need for people to reconnect. What would you recommend to someone who is interested in this and they would like to reconnect? Like, what would be the first steps that someone should take?
To go for a walk in your neighborhood, to take in the colors, to smell the scents, to observe what is around you, to greet the neighbor the next time you walk past them. Cultivate your capacity to move beyond your immediate own unique microsphere and bring it into something that is greater, simply by just sitting outside under a tree, or if you are in an apartment, open the window, have a look outside. There is an incredible world that works in absolute unison when it's not touched by us humans. It is it is working in perfection. The penultimate expression of a flower in its of a seed in its fullest expression is a flower. That flower becomes um, food source. It becomes something that, bees and birds move and pollinate with. It uses light for photosynthesis, the soil to grow. It uses, so water to also feed it as well. So, if you can just go out and see the beauty of a flower and bring it in with one of the senses, then you've just got a very simple and honest and authentic beginning.
And what is it exactly going to do to my life? Because there's just so many things that are happening, that I'm busy, I have this stuff going on, and also maintaining connections with other people. Then there is my business, my career, and all of that. So, how can someone expect their life to change once they start doing this very simple practice?
Because what it does is bring us back to ourself and in rhythm with the natural cycles of life, rather than the rhythm that society or even you, when you're out of sync with yourself, I must. It's all about deadlines, it's all about time. Nature has a natural rhythm, it has cycles, it has seasons. And so do we actually. So it brings us back into connection with the most important person in our life, which is ourselves. And for me, once we are in deep connection with that I am presence, when we understand our values, what are our passions, the life force that actually brings us into that feeling of excitement or engaging in grounded presence with someone, with what we are doing, then we can really align our lives and start living from our highest creative potential. But that can only be actualized if we understand who we are. And to really understand who we are requires us to do one thing and one thing only, is to actually be with ourselves.
Which people don't really do that much nowadays.
No, they're terrified. And the communications that we have, the phone, the internet, WhatsApp, it means that we unconsciously have made ourselves energetically and physically available 24/7 to the outside world. And when I was growing up, that was never, ever in my field of awareness. Whatever I was doing, I was always present in what I was doing. There was never, I'm checking my phone. Oh, another message has come in. It was always in absolute presence and usually outside in nature.
Do you feel that people who lived, let's say, like 40 years ago, they were more present? And with that, do you think they understood themselves more? And with that, were they more connected to their true self?
Well, I definitely don't feel that in general we were more connected. Otherwise, the world wouldn't be the way it is.
Yeah.
I feel that when we were with each other, there was a level of presence that I don't see often unless someone has cultivated a practice, a daily practice within themselves. What I see the difference is now with people that have grown up, say in the 90s, in the 2000s, is much more of a pressure and much more of this idea of comparison. I should be here, but I'm not. Now, that of course has always existed, but this overwhelming field of global information, which used to just be taken in by the television when people were sitting in front of the television, we literally have access to it now with 5G networks, with global networks, like not only literally, but energetically as well. So, what I've seen now is that to be able to anchor oneself and ground oneself into the rhythm of the earth so that you're not living in your head is actually a much more difficult process and requires more discipline.
And if I can be completely honest, like that has been my biggest struggle as well. Because I also so externalize my existence, and then there's always something else I can pay attention to. So it actually takes almost a conscious effort from me to sit down just to be with myself, because there's always something to do. There's always something that can entertain me. There's always something that can distract me from maybe some of the problems that I have in my head or what I'm experiencing in my life. And then I just choose to numb those parts of me and just like look at everything around me as a distraction. And at the same time, the same thing what I'm looking at also comes back to me as like a negatively loaded experience that I keep on seeing the best of the best, and I start comparing myself to that because it's also ingrained in us. Like it's evolution, right? Like we look at like how people are doing, so we need to be on that level because our survival depends on that. So that's an experience what I have as a high achiever. And I know that so many people out there who are high achievers as well. I know that you also work a lot with other high achievers, people who have built incredible amount of wealth and success in their life. Is there a pattern, something that you see among those individuals that they usually have to face at some point in their life?
Well, if I really feel into your question, and there is a lot here, you related high achiever immediately with the Western idea of success, money, children, a home, status. Whereas, and I will get to your final question. Whereas, what if success was happiness? What if success was the quality of peace, of deep satisfaction and meaning within our lives? Because a lot of high achievers have come to see people like me because they're seeking meaning. They've got it all and they're empty. They've never cultivated, and this is in general, this is not everybody, obviously. In general, there hasn't been this desire and cultivation towards a life that is deeply aligned with values, with purpose and meaning. What strives one achiever in comparison to another? It could be many things. I didn't receive enough attention when I was a child. Whenever I was told by my parents that I was a really good boy or girl for getting grade A's or this or whatever, then I was wanting to do more of that naturally. I would get the best looking girl in my class if I was a high achiever or the best at sport. What is the shadow side of that type of drive? Oof, big lack of self-worth, a big lack of understanding who we are at the core of our being and not allowing anything other than our true sense of self be the place of our values. I'm a woman who is in my midlife who really understands this because beauty, youth, success is really honored in an infantile society, which is something that we have. Look at what we call the elders in our community, the elderly. It has this connotation of someone who is decrepit, who is kind of disposable, whereas in traditional and indigenous cultures, we're looking at eldership and the role of what it is to start stepping into your wisdom years and all of that knowledge and information and wisdom that has been gathered and how we can share it with younger people. Being old doesn't necessarily make you wise. However, if we can start looking at ourselves on a journey towards true eldership, then our focus will move away from what we can get to what we can give in this world and to each other and to the younger ones that are coming forward.
I can see how that connection has been lost.
Mm.
Probably one of the reasons is because like my grandma doesn't understand this world right now. When she speaks to me over the computer, she thinks that I'm inside of a box. I think it's kind of like a combination of how much technology has accelerated over the past decades, which brought us also closer, but at the same time disconnected us. And it also made us think that people who are not adapting to this new way of living are irrelevant.
So I love this example. So, as I was sharing, true eldership, someone who is deeply connected with themselves, who has an understanding of life and who has gone through some really strong experiences, powerful, deep, challenging experiences in life. You know, there used to be the witch or the healer or the wise man or the elder that lived at the side of the village, and people would come to them for a healing treatment. People would come to them, oh, can you make some herbs for my sick child? I don't necessarily go to a computer expert seeking wisdom other than, can you fix my computer or can you install this program for me? Um, what we're talking about essentially is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And what most of us, what you're sharing is the people that are in the eldership years in our Western society. You're absolutely right. They have not had any training. They haven't been using a computer since the age of 2 or 3. They perhaps started using a computer at the age of 60, at the age of 50. So for them, it's frightening, but that's not where wisdom lives. However, I can appreciate that most people see that, well, if you don't know something about computers, maybe you're not smart. And again, just because someone is old, it doesn't mean that they've cultivated a strong sense of awareness. A lot of older people, especially the ones that I feel that you might be talking about, again, are just numbing themselves out with television, with food, rather than being with themselves. They'll go and gossip with the next door neighbor. So, I'm talking about a quality of an individual, not necessarily an age.
I love what you mentioned that knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. And that perfectly explained how I, for example, view my grandma. That maybe she doesn't have the knowledge about the topics that I'm interested in, so we are not necessarily connecting on that field, but she has something else. And that was something that I recently learned from her because I spent her birthday with her, and I went to her for like a week. She lives in the countryside, like very simple, very humble life. And one of the main takeaways that I had from those couple of days was that she doesn't have all of the stuff that we are striving for. Like she is not in a hurry to get anything beyond her peace. And she is hands down the most peaceful person I know. She's in peace with herself. She's in peace, even if she is going to be gone by tomorrow. She's in peace with everybody around her. And I was really questioning that, like, how can she do that? But I guess it goes back to what you mentioned, that like we need to sit with ourselves. And this kind of like brings me to something that you mentioned yesterday, and it just like hit me like a brick, that God is inside of us and not outside of us. This is not what I learned.
Well, this is why I love this path, walking this path, the shamanic path or the path of animism, because in all of our traditions, through all corners and every corner of the world, we actually practiced an earth based tradition, which means that we understood that trees had a living spirit, that rocks were the record, crystals and rocks were the record keepers, as it were, of this earth, that animals had a spirit, were very much alive, that all of what, the bodies of water, the mountains, the forests, the deserts, everything in this world in terms of shamanism and animism is alive. It has a life force, it has an energy, and it has an important role to play in terms of keeping all life on this earth in balance, including us. So, what happened with organized religion when it came in is it placed, and including us, of course, we're a part of this earth, it placed God or spirit, whatever you want to call the intelligent creative principle that runs through all of life, outside of ourselves. So it then became, oh, everything that I need to strive for is outside of us, outside of us. It's not here, it's not accessible. And if it's not here and it's not accessible, and God or spirit is not contained within everything that I encounter, that I'm also not going to care for it in the same way. Because if we don't see that a tree has a spirit, that has a whole network with all of the other tree beings around it, the tree kingdom, then we're not going to respect it because we don't think it's alive. It's just existing for our use. And so this awareness of spirit in the living world around us brings us into right relationship and supports us in understanding that we are not at the top here. We exist as humans only because of our relationship when it's authentic with every single thing around us. And so we stop striving outside of ourselves and we start really understanding the true teachings of Christ, Yeshua, brilliant, enlightened being of his time, that the kingdom of heaven is within. The kingdom of heaven is within. So we can only find everything that we are looking for, that we are truly searching for when we go within the wisdom of our hearts. And we recognize the teachings of Shakespeare, who was also a wonderful teacher, as above, so below, that everything is a mirror, the micro to the macro.
Mirror meaning,
That everything then, when we see it with the eyes of the heart, becomes, it's a reflection. Everything is a reflection and an extension of myself. I am not separate from that tree when I see and connect with the tree with my heart. I am not separate from my cat, from my friend, from my husband. It doesn't mean that I don't have an identity or an ego, otherwise, I wouldn't exist and I just want to merge with the totality of life. But it means that I understand that we are in some way a part of the living, breathing ecology and ecosystem of this extraordinary and beautiful life, and we can really understand what a gift it is. And life is not meant to be easy. I see a lot of young people, I wish my life was easier. And I'm like, really? If you didn't know hardship, you wouldn't understand how glorious it is when our life seems to be working just as we want it. If you didn't have illness, we wouldn't appreciate health. And so just to be here in this life is to experience the shadow, the light, the seemingly good and bad, but it's all part of this human experience.
What if the t-shirt you are wearing right now could help you recover faster and boost your performance without adding more to-dos to your routine? Well, this is exactly what Intelligent Threads can do for you. It's trusted by professional athletes, and it's also one of my favorite gears as well. They have something called tension release technology, a form of quantum frequency tech deeply embedded into the fibers of the clothing, allowing your muscles to relax and your body to shift back into its natural alignment. When I tested it with a professional sport therapist, we saw a 70% increase in muscle strength and a 40 degrees improvement in range of motion. It is not masking the pain, it is helping your nervous system to shift into a parasympathetic state so you can heal and sleep better. During my 30 days test, my deep sleep hit a 2-year high and my readiness score was practically the best it has ever been. It is literally as simple as putting on a t-shirt, no appointments, no additional equipment needed. Now you can get 10% off your entire order by going to the link in the description below or heading to intelligentthreads.com/Adam and using the code Adam at checkout. That's again intelligentthreads.com/Adam using the code Adam at checkout. And now back to the episode. This reminds me to something that you also very openly talked about, and you call it the dark night of the soul.
Mm.
What is that exactly, and why do you think it's important for us to embrace that?
What do I feel that it is exactly? I can only share with you from my own experience. For me, when anyone is going through a very dark night of the soul, it can be precipitated by the loss of a loved one, separation, chronic illness, displacement. For me, it's on the continuum of spiritual awakening, but it moves into that space of spiritual emergency where an individual has no reference point anymore. Their identity has been stripped of themselves, and they find themselves with nothing but themselves. And unless um, you have strong support around you, or you have someone who is able to guide you through this very dark night, which is, I don't know what is up, I don't know what is down, I don't feel comfortable in my life anymore. Everything around me seems to have lost its meaning. Then we find ourselves in the bigger questions of life of why am I here and who am I? Ultimately, who am I and why am I here? Now, the dark night of the soul doesn't always take someone to that place. It could be a spiritual awakening, but the dark night of the soul is that place, I like to say, and I will say this for myself when I went through it personally, is where I found myself on my knees, really, for the first time in my life, just praying. And please, please let me know what my next step is. I don't know what the next week is, but just help me, support me in my next step. And I think this is very important for me to share with everyone. If you are going through a dark night of the soul, this is a time to tend to simplicity, cooking good food for yourself, making sure that you sleep well, having moments where you can just be on your own. And the dark night of the soul, we usually want to be on our own and just being. And so not resisting what the natural soul urge is, which is to grow one's soul up. So just to focus on the day. And sometimes it's just the moment. And in the moment, everything is usually okay. I'm here. If I'm in the moment, I'm not focused on the past. I'm not focused on the future. All I'm focusing on is the very basic needs that I have now. It's not a time for striving. So, in a nutshell, the dark night of the soul is where we have been stripped of all titles, of all identities, self imposed sense of self worth. And we start looking at the deeper meaning of life of what is my existence all about? And for most of us that are on a conscious spiritual path, it will come. It will come for each one of us. And so, preparation, a daily spiritual practice, whether that's meditation or dancing, moving, walking in nature, is absolutely essential.
And it ties perfectly back to what you also mentioned earlier during the conversation, that there are different kind of seasons,
Mm-hmm.
not just in nature, but there are different seasons in our life as well. So there is a season for hardship, the
Yes.
time exactly when everything kind of just feels like falling apart. I don't understand anything. Like, have I been doing life all wrong all this time? What's going to happen next? But based on what you're saying, it sounds like that's an absolutely essential part of that journey, what we need to go through this life. And you almost refer to it as a gift.
I do. How did I move through my dark night of the soul? Well, there was a series of events, and they were big events that initiated my dark night of the soul. You know, I'm a very happy, sanguine individual. And then life went boom, 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 not just once, but 3 times because I'm stubborn, right? And what I found is that those people who can find the meaning, who can find the gift within those dark journeys, whatever that gift is. Oh, this situation in hindsight led me onto this path. It allowed me to move to this country. It made me realize something about myself. Um, then if we can, and it's not usually in the moment, of course, it's usually in hindsight that we can find the meaning. And in the way that I continued to find meaning in the moment, even though when I was in deep grief, was to journal every morning, light a simple candle, and continue to come back to myself and tend, like I said, just to that day, because I couldn't think beyond that. That's not the time for dreaming big when we're grieving. It's the time to take care of our soul. And we do that by gentle walks in nature, nurturing ourselves, cooking good food, connecting with good friends and family that understands us, and just being with what is. Can we be okay no matter what happens in our life and understand that life is working for us? Now, those 3 things that happened to me was the death of my son in when he was full term in childbirth. So I'd carried him after 9 months, and through a 3-day labor, he died in the process of that. So I had to give birth to him knowing that he was not alive. And everything that came from that, of course, I can share this with you now. It's almost 15 years. But Alakai continues to inform my life, and his presence in my life and also his departure. So life and death were there at one, has affected me in profound ways that I'm so grateful for that connection. 2 weeks after he was born, I found out that my mother was terminally ill. And then I had to, I supported her through her cancer journey. And then a couple of months after that, my ex-husband and I separated. It was too much. And we're still good friends, which I'm very grateful for. Now, they were not small things. And yet I recognize that there are people out there that go through so many things that are so horrific and tragic. And I want to share with each one of you, we can move through anything if we find that meaning afterwards. If we don't let that story just become this story of tragedy, if we work with the aspects of ourselves that want to victimize ourselves, these things shouldn't happen to me. I'm a good person. Well, really terrible things happen to good people because it's life. And death is very much a part of life. And honestly, Alakai's presence in my life supported me in stepping even deeper into this path. And now I'm a mother to many. And now this gift of understanding what it is to carry a child, to birth a child, I bring into all the work that I do. I bring it into all the connections that I have because that love didn't disappear. It expanded me. It broke me open. And here's the challenge. Will you shut down when life gets hard, or will you continue to say yes and know that, oof, this was something I never expected? But it broke me open in a way that I could hold so much more love for myself and humanity and my fellow human beings. It grew my compassion muscle in a way that nothing else did. And now when I meet someone, I'm always so curious. What was your story? What brought you to this? Because for me, unless someone has gone through something deep in their lives, they usually don't have any gravitas, any weight. There's like, where's the depth? Unless that person is naturally oriented towards that. Hard times make strong people. Weak times make very weak people. Sorry, people that have not gone through anything, they're not usually the strongest of people, which is why humility is usually associated with people that have lived a life, not the youth. Youth in general are pretty arrogant because life hasn't humbled them. And we all have been there. We think we know everything. I remember when I was a teenager, I know everything. My parents didn't know anything. We all have been there. Life humbles us. And I'm not in the word of it makes us meek or small. It shows us that we don't know anything, that life is always the teacher. And yet we know everything because it's all within here. So there's always the paradox of life and living, right?
First of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm 100% sure that so many people are going to find connection in your story as well. There were a couple of things that came up for me as you were sharing this. The first one was when you ask for strength from God or from the universe, how do you think the universe is going to give you strength? By just like, boom, you are strong? Or is it going to create moments where you can build strength so you are going to be strong? And then that strength is going to have a utility like later down in life when you need to build something or like whatever life is meant for you. And throughout these moments, this is when you kind of like practice to become that person who is going to be able to execute that, or to become the person who is going to be on that path that was meant for you, which can be very daunting in the moment and can be very scary. And this is where I personally struggled a lot. And your dear husband actually gave me a beautiful advice when I was going through that phase of my life,
which was I need to slow down and I need to be with myself. And that was probably the most triggering advice I could receive because I was just not wired that way. And I feel that so many people out there wired in a very similar way that, like, okay, shit is happening. Either people are going to start victimizing themselves or they are going to start distracting themselves by, like, okay, like that's not working out. I'm going to throw myself into work 100% so I don't have to go through this painful
Mm.
experience. Is this something that you also often see with people that you work with?
Yes. We're in a society that loves easy, quick fixes. Take away, pop up homes, pop up festivals, pop up entertainment. Oh, if that's going to cause me to have to work a little bit for it, oh, I'm just going to do the easy thing. Oh, I need to write my essay. I'm going to put it into ChatGPT or Claude or any of these things. Generally, these days, we have people that are really uh, have a very easy life. They're not going down to the well to collect water anymore. We're not actually honoring and connecting in with the meat that we eat anymore. It comes plastic wrapped in a supermarket. We don't need, some people don't even walk 5 minutes to the shops. They get in their car. Everything has become quick, quick, fast, easy, quick fix. And as I was sharing the other day in a podcast, clarity and finding our inner clarity, our true compass north, it doesn't necessarily mean that clarity brings us peace when we align with that. It can bring us sadness. Oh dear. I know that the my relationship is over. I have that clarity, but it's not going to feel like joy or peace because then there are all the steps that need to happen in order for me to really then action my decision. So building strength and cultivating inner resilience takes practice. It takes practice. Go and do, volunteering at an animal shelter. Go and work with, single parents, single mothers society. Do something, challenge yourself every day to do something to step outside of your comfort zone. Learn a new language. Go and visit a country on your own that is not about shopping and sightseeing, but is going to bring you a deep and spiritual experience with the people of the land and with the nature of that land. Test yourself. If you haven't had a challenging upbringing or challenging way of being in life, then test yourself, move yourself out of your comfort zone. Because for me, these days, the most successful people will be the ones that are able to adapt to change very well. Not the most educated, not the ones with the highest IQ, but the ones that are emotionally solid and are aware of how our emotions can either work for us or be our greatest enemy.
So, the dark night of the soul is a practice as well to build that resilience.
Absolutely. A daily practice of what is and real acceptance of what is and knowing that this too shall pass. Unless you're really invested in being a victim, you will move through that dark night of the soul because nothing in nature is still. Everything, including us, are in seasons, are in cycles, and we need to trust that. There is the extraordinary times in life, and then there is the times that require us to dig deep. And what I always say to people is those good times are there to be celebrated, but we learn the most from the times that are challenging, from the times that require us to dig deep and, ooh, what is life asking of me now? That's how we grow.
Do you also think that the dark night of the soul is an important part of our spiritual awakening?
Yes. And I believe that if we are living a human life, we will have, each one of us in this life, if you haven't experienced death of someone very dear to you, I promise you, you will. It's not a threat. It's not a, it's, it is a fact. It is a fact that we are, as humans, we are all born through a woman. And it is a fact that one day there will come a moment, unless we die quickly, that we will be facing our own mortality. And I always say to people, we really struggle with the dark night of the soul. Like in the West, we struggle with death because it's the unknown. We're in the liminal space, we're in the void. We don't know what's on the other side of the dark night of the soul. And we're not meant to, because we're meant to be in the washing machine, in that depth, in the fertile ground of darkness. Usually seeds don't grow in the light, they grow right in the center of the soil, in the depth of the soil, which is why so many spiritual traditions use the lotus as a metaphor for spiritual growth, because literally it grows in the depths of the dark. And then here we have that moment when the flower blossoms, when the lotus blossoms, when we blossom. And there's layers. There's layers. When you've gone through a deep process, there's so many layers, like peeling off the onion. But we need to trust the process,
Which is the hard part.
which is the hard part.
Because so many people don't even trust themselves anymore.
Right. Which is why we need to continue to build our spiritual muscle, daily practices, daily awarenesses. What are my values? You know, what brings me alive? What am I here for? You cannot do that. You can have awareness with beautiful conversations with other people that are also on a path of growth, but the real work comes, and the real awareness, I believe, has been those moments of walking in nature, of being really connected to my own source of inspiration, in spirit, in connection.
So like we need to do stuff in order for us to feel even just powerful enough to push through this kind of times, to prepare ourselves for life. Because so many lessons actually come from the depth of the dark, and we need to like push through some of those experiences. Do you feel that this is also a part of like self-empowerment?
I'm going to rephrase you.
Please do.
We need to do stuff in order to feel self empowerment. I'm going to change that script around. Here's the invitation for all of us, and it's always my invitation. Come to my self empowerment workshop. I've been there. You will feel empowered. I'm going to support you to feel empowered. This, da, 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 da. What is power? We and all of nature, nothing is powerful in and of itself. To understand power, we have to understand that we are relational beings. And so we have to understand who our spiritual guides are. I'm talking shamanically, okay, in the animist traditions and many earth-centered traditions, we understand, we start working with through drum journeys, through guided meditations, through depth processes, who our spiritual allies are, who our animal allies are, our plant allies, our our ancestors, our benevolent ancestors. What is my protection? What are my boundaries? Uh, who is a guardian in my life? Now, when I understand that, in terms of my inner cosmology, in terms of understanding my own inner wheel or medicine wheel or inner compass, then and only then can I really talk about power, my own personal power. Is because I understand my relationship to the land I'm standing on. I understand that going to a new country means that I'm going to maybe offer a gift to that land and ask for safety and clear passage. I'm going to honor the ancestors of the land, maybe through prayer. I'm going to really bow my head in humility when I see a beautiful lake. She represents the feminine, the water, the unconscious, the intuitive. I'm going to look at this enormous oak tree and go, oh my gosh, my brother, you've been here for 200, 300, 400 years. I'm such a child. And I'm going to understand my relationship. I'm going to understand my power only because of understanding my relationship with all of the beings that are seen and unseen that support me in my life.
There's so much to unpack here.
Oh,
Yeah, especially when you say that it's relational. It's the relationship that we have, not just with ourselves, but everything around us, what we see, what we don't see. What do you think the main change should be for people who sell or promote this kind of like self-empowerment classes or courses? Like, what is it that they get wrong? Because to me, it still sounds like that they are selling a term, something that became very popular. But are they even doing the right thing for people?
so rather than, rather than seeing this as something that is wrong, I would say that everyone exists at their own level of consciousness. And for some people, going to those workshops is going to be right for that individual at that point in their life. Especially, and I will say this, if those practices that are shared within those workshops or those webinars or those retreats support an individual to continue to return to themselves and source their awareness from themselves rather than giving it away to something else. And when I'm talking about relational, I'm not giving my power away. So I would say that it's not wrong. I would say that it's just it's that type of work will resonate with a type of person that is at a certain level of their own growth. The way that I'm working is not going to resonate with everyone. Okay, and I really believe this, that whether you're a yoga teacher, whether you're working with shamanism, whether you're working with judo, meditation, or movement, any path is a path to conscious liberation if it works for that individual. But it has to be a path of practice and diligence. So, say, for instance, not everyone will come to me and go, hey, I want to feel empowered and really understand what I'm sharing. Well, when I'm sharing with them, well, you need to really understand who your allies are, what your connection is with the land, with your ancestors. Not everyone is going to understand how important that is unless they've done some deep work with me. They will think, oh, but that means you're just giving your power away to others. No, it means I know that I've got a support team. I know who I am because I've already entered into that connection with sourcing the divine within rather than giving it away. And I continue to grow with that.
Hey, just a quick one. Just wanted to make sure you have already subscribed. If you haven't, please do. And now back to the episode.
Well, then it also raises the question, what are some of those practices and tools that can help an individual to connect with themselves and with their allies?
Obviously, there are so many practices in the shamanic arts, and those of you that are going outside every day, just simply barefoot, connecting with the earth, is one way that we can really regulate our nervous systems. And when an individual is incredibly regulated in their nervous system, they're going to be that point of safety and that point of empowerment within their own being. One of the most simple practices that I work with in the shamanic arts is a shamanic drum journey, which guides people into trance states. And all earth-centered shamanic traditions will have ways of bringing an individual into altered states of consciousness. And what I'm working with when I'm working with a drum journey is bringing that individual into an altered state where we can really access information from our subconscious minds, which speaks in images. So, for instance, in the shamanic worldview, we have a lower world, a middle world, and an upper world. For the interest of this particular podcast that we're sharing, in terms of power and accessing power, which this path is really supporting an individual into, I would take an individual. One of the practices is simply taking an individual with my drum into a guided journey to connect with their own personal power. That might be an animal ally. It might be a totem animal. It may be that we're going to work with what kind of plant spirit is within your inner cosmology, and who are your benevolent, as in well-meaning ancestors that are in the space. So I usually take people on a drum journey so that they can really get an understanding through my guidance, through my voice, through my vocal activations, sound, as well as the drum and the rattle and my bells, as well as this beautiful guided process of let's connect with all of the allies that are in your space through all the cardinal directions, through the direction of the air, or the father sky, some people like to call it, which for me is the archetypal masculine principle, Mother Earth, which really we're looking at the feminine here because she's giving birth to life. And then ultimately we come back to the center, which is the center of our I am presence, where all of those other directions and archetypal and mythopoetic energies can be connected with, can be felt, not only through our inner vision, but sometimes through our senses, our hearing, our smell, our felt sense, our kinesthetic sense, and our embodied awareness of, oh, I saw these eyes. Oh, okay, so tell me more about it. What did it feel like? What did this particular connection feel like to you? And what is the invitation then? Oh, I connected with a black jaguar. Well, what is the medicine of the jaguar for you? It's a solitary creature. It's a creature of personal power for you. What does it mean? Oh, when I need to be fierce, or when I need to feel that energy within myself, I know I can feel fierce or I can feel protected. However, I will say this, because a lot of people in the West that I work with, you know, they always have these amazing animals. Oh, I had a dragon or a black jaguar or a crocodile. What is the most powerful one of them in the insect or animal kingdom, Adam? What is one of the strongest insects?
And
An ant. And so people always overlook the small things. And sometimes it's the very small things, like an ant, which can carry so much more than its weight, is so powerful. And they also work in community very well. And they work in connection. So I would say that if you want to work with medicine of ant, it's about detail, it's about community, it's about the capacity to take on more than what you would expect, and work with that very, very well. They're a wonderful metaphor for community, actually. So don't get attached to the, oh, it's a wolf or it's a black jaguar. Yes, it may be for you, but don't forget that there is medicine in the small things as well. So simple shamanic drum journeys, connecting with the earth, connecting with the power of a tree. I would say to people as well, if you want to work with your own empowerment, challenge yourself every day with small things. Maybe you're going to go to an event on your own. You may decide, oh, I'm going to take myself out for dinner on my own. Maybe you're feeling nervous to do something so unusual or something so beautiful for yourself. Take a book or your laptop if you're feeling nervous in the beginning, if you're feeling uncomfortable, and go, "Ah, I feel a bit weird about going on my own to a meal, so I might take a book or a laptop. And then maybe I'm going to feel more comfortable with it, and then I'm going to just show up as myself." Maybe you show up to an event on your own. That can be very edgy for some people. When we challenge ourselves with small tasks, maybe you're going to travel to a retreat on your own, or you're going to travel to a destination that's 3 hours away or another country away, and you do something for yourself, which you normally may not do. This is where we flex the muscle of, wow, I did something, and I did something on my own and it felt amazing. Remember the first time we drove a car and we learned to drive, and it feels very edgy and very confronting when we're doing something new for the first time until it doesn't. So if we challenge ourselves every day and we see that we can do something, we're also flexing our muscle of, oh, I'm feeling more empowered. I can do this. In the shamanic arts, the most simple and the first practice is, I will take you on a journey to discover who and what are your allies.
Just on what you mentioned about the challenges, because that also came up a bit earlier when you were sharing how is it that someone can start building resilience, and you were mentioning these like small challenges that someone can do for them. What are some of the other benefits that these small challenges can bring to someone besides building resilience?
Self-confidence. I know the times that I've really taken huge risks, moved countries, not knowing the language, taken myself on an adventure for my birthday on my own to countries that I hadn't visited before. Every day I was like, oh my goodness, as much as I felt that fear and then overcame that fear, what it built for me is deep personal confidence. And when we continue to have confidence, when life reflects back to us that, oh, you did this and you survived, not only that, you're starting to thrive, that builds that deep inner, it doesn't matter what anyone says to you, it's like, I know I can do it. The first time, for instance, that I drove on the other side of the road when I first moved to Mexico, I was like, I stopped the car when I finally, drove from the other side of the road from the airport to where I was staying. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. And I had this conversation. I'm so proud of you. That was so scary. Now I'm driving on the other side of the road and it feels great. So it develops that confidence, and we need confidence to be able to move forward in life. You are not going to take a risk and more risks, and you're not going to continue to challenge yourself if you don't have the confidence. But it's in the daily small risks that we continue to build that muscle. And everything is a muscle, really, metaphorically or literally physically.
I really love that example because I also feel that we are living through a time where people don't really even have that self-confidence. They don't have that self-trust, and then pretty much like everything in our life based on the relationship with ourselves. So just like exposing ourselves to these different kind of circumstances to learn more about ourselves, and also almost kind of like prove it to ourselves that, oh, I'm not as lost as I thought. Oh, I'm not as scared as I thought. Like, I got this. I actually lived through it and I did it. Like, driving on the opposite side of the road can be very challenging or very scary for some people. All of these like small bits and pieces builds up our self-image, and then essentially reality is the reflection of who we are and what we are able to tap in. As we are talking about these things, we talk a lot about self, like self-trust, self-confidence, self-empowerment. So that's like self, 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 self. But there was something that you also mentioned about community. So when somebody is going through this journey, whether we want to call it just like life or we want to call it a healing journey, what do you feel that we lose if we just try to do everything by ourselves versus like having the right people around us as we are going through this experience?
Oh, I know this one really well. Now, from where I'm sitting, having gone through a journey of feeling that I had to do everything myself, because there is an aspect of me that has an inner perfectionist, which I have had to really work with that part of myself. It is a trauma response that is really fed to us by society, that and it, it can be seen in when we're going on a spiritual journey, that everything is self-focused, and it has to be for a certain period of time, because no one else can do the healing for us. No one else can empower us. We ultimately have to do it ourselves. So someone can support you in opening the door and guiding you, but you have to go through it. Where I'm at now, I understand that need for me, or thinking that I had to do everything on my own, was a trauma response from childhood. Nobody's going to be able to do this like me. If I trust somebody else to do this for me, will they do it in the way that I like it to be done? Well, obviously they're not going to be doing it in the way that I do it. They'll do it in their own unique way, which is amazing. Where I'm at now is really understanding the power of having the right people around you. Connecting with you over the last couple of years, connecting with some people that I know now, that are where we understand that our values are really aligned. I could literally trust you with my life now. I trust my husband, Martin, with my life. And the people that are close to me, I now would literally say, I trust them with my life, because I know that their values are very aligned with mine. I've seen how they walk through life. It's in absolute integrity. And I know that I could like hand over a task, that I could say, hey, I'm going to leave my house to you for 5 months. And I know that everything in my home, which is a deep trust, letting someone into your own personal space, I would walk back into my home and it would be exactly how I left it. So I see now that there is a continuum. The initial part of healing must come from that sense of self. I need to heal, and we do heal individually. Then I see that there comes this moment where it's like I feel safe enough to heal in community. And then healing becomes relational, personal development becomes relational. And that is just such a beautiful space to be in. And then it moves even beyond that. The elevation of my life and my work can only happen in community, but not just any community, in the right community where our values are very much aligned and we're all working towards a common goal, where we all have very strong and very clear agreements that are set in place that actually need to be revisited, because as we change, our personal agreements will have to change with that. So I see the value now that I am at this space in my life, coming back into that space where I've done enough inner work, where I know myself enough that I feel safe enough now to take myself out again into community, because community was not always safe for me. It was scary because there were so many things going on in that space, because there was aspects of my own shadow. Notice I'm saying my own shadow that I needed to heal, because I kept on seeing it reflected in the people around me.
And which one comes first in the journey? Because I could also see that the steps of first, it needs to come from within as like a self practice, or like I start working on myself, then after that I can allow myself, or I have the courage to put myself out there again to connect. But I could also see that for some people, the first step would be to go out there first and connect. And with that, they are going to start looking more within, and they start the process that way rather than the other way around. Is there like a good structure for this, or is it very individual?
Adam, I think it's really individual. I am an introvert by nature. I really need my own time to be alone, to connect with the earth, to connect with my own being. For an individual that seeks a lot of solitary time on their own, then it makes sense that that point of connection will come with you first. For others, that point of connection may come through that community of going, wow, I love this community, and this community is really focused on healing, on spirituality, not on escape, not on hedonism, but on an authentic path of spirituality. And that person may bring you into a very deep focus. I've seen this with people that have suddenly become they go to India, for instance, and they start practicing meditation or vipassana, or even the teachings of Islam, for instance, or the teachings of the Buddha, of the Christ, and they find community that is very aligned with their values. This is also a beautiful path. But ultimately, I will say this, ultimately, we are born in this world alone and we die alone. So I will not say that there is a wrong or a right path, but because there are many, many paths to truth. And truth is an evolving, I would say, knowing an ideology sometimes for people, depending on where you are in your journey. My truth was not necessarily the same one that I have now 10 years ago. The guiding principle of my life, yes, kindness, compassion, this awareness of the spiritual world has always been with me. Freedom, inner freedom. But ultimately, I feel that we will find our moments of deep inner truth and our moments of awareness when we are very close to ourselves in our inner heart sanctuary. Because even when we are in a group, say for instance, if you are having a journey within a group, whether it's with plant medicine or whether it's through yoga or whether it's through journeying, even though we are in a group, in those moments, we're still focusing on our own inner journey. So yes, healing can be relational, and it is beautiful when it's relational, but ultimately, it's a journey that is deeply personal and private. So can we hold both without saying, no, this is wrong or this is not the right path? Can we understand that at different parts of our journey, we're going to need different things? At the moment, this part of my journey, after a very long healing journey, as I was sharing with you all earlier, after those big 3 experiences of my life, I'm 15 years on now. And now I can see that now the fruits of the deep work that I've done, the fruits of my labor, we all know this with this sharing. Now I'm seeking community and connection because, and it's coming from a very different space because, boy, I really am in a completely different inner landscape within my life. Now I'm like, okay, it's time for community, because I recognize that in order to fulfill the projects that I have, I definitely will be seeking the right support for that.
What I would like to hold on to is still related to community, as it came up a couple of times throughout this conversation as well, that how people started to seek more connection, and also like healing is and self-empowerment is relational. So we are all here. It's almost like a perfectly orchestrated theater where we all play a role. So it's important to actually bring everything back into society, back into community. But I also see that a certain subsegment of people um, started to twist this in a way where they use spirituality as like putting on a facade, as like, I'm the person who is on this journey and I'm here to educate you and I'm here to show you an example. And I see them take advantage of that attention and they take advantage of that power. And in relation to that, I have seen and I have experienced a lot of spiritual bypassing as well. I just wanted to ask you, what are some of the things that you would recommend people to pay attention to, who to actually connect with, who to actually trust within this spiritual realm?
Great question. And my goodness, this is where I think our own individual shadow work is super important. And not only shadow work, as in the darker side of shadow, but also the golden shadow. We love to project onto movie stars now spirituality and shamanism and seeking medicine in indigenous communities, going to festivals, going to conscious events is super popular these days. And I think it was birthed from a great intention. Anytime a group or an individual is not being held accountable for their actions, and someone perhaps shares something that has triggered them or that they're not in alignment with, and that person comes back with some type of spiritual platitude. And what I mean by that is, oh, maybe my ancestors, they didn't deal with time. It was all about having the right intention. When you have paid someone to be on time and you've paid them very, very well, Western money, and they then go, oh, but my ancestors didn't work in this way. I'm just giving you an example. Then for me, that is an absolute, it's a crock of shit. It means nothing. Your ancestors and all of our ancestors could only continue to move forward in their spiritual development if their actions were aligned with their words. And so for me, look at someone's actions, not their words. Don't just, that person's wearing lots of head feathers. That person's wearing all the clothes that should be worn in the spiritual community. They're wearing linen, they're vegetarian, they don't drink. Oh, they don't have coffee because that's not very spiritual. Well, I'm going to call this out on people and say, listen, if you think that spirituality is just found on your yoga mat, or it's just found in that cup of ayahuasca or wachuma, or with how organic your clothes are, or that you don't drink, then I'm going to say to you that, Hitler was also a vegetarian. Hashtag fact. And look what he started in the world. So someone can be, have values in one area and not have the values that you're aligned with in another area. And so for me, it's always about, look at their actions. Are their actions aligned with their words? If they say they're going to show up at a certain time and they're not there, do they at least communicate with you? Are they doing one thing in their private life and something else in their public life? Do they expect that they are above the law? Hello, look at all the politicians, many of the politicians in the world. Look at what's come out with the Epstein files. Actions are not aligned with people's words when you look at what is happening all around them. And so I will say that spiritual bypassing in the world that we're living in is a very serious danger, and it's a very serious danger in the spiritual community. Look at how I'm dressed. I'm a medicine woman. I have not arrived here with bells and whistles and feathers in my hair. Now, I used to be very over-identified with the persona of being a shamanic practitioner and a medicine woman. Now, when I'm in a medicine space, I am not wearing this, but I may. And what I mean by that is I'm free now from all ideas of what I need to look like in order to be X, Y, Z. People are going to see me as a medicine woman if I've got my big, Tulum hat on with my big feathers. I have no issue with that as long as that image is authentic to a person. But now it's become a uniform. So what I'm talking about is, can you really show up as yourself? And that may be a tracksuit for some people, depending on how they feel on that day, as long as you are in line with exactly who you are. Don't buy into an image. Don't buy into, and the biggest danger for me is if an individual always surrounds themselves with people that are sycophantic, people that never challenge them, people that you don't see that they're mixing with equals. That for me, in terms of a facilitator or a teacher, is the biggest red flag. Are they always hanging around with sycophants? I don't. The people in my life are super empowered. They're brilliant people from all walks of life. And I can tell you right now, they will certainly call me out on my stuff if it needs to be called out on. I may challenge that. I may not like that all the time, but I'm so grateful for that, because we need people that are honest mirrors, not people that are just going to be going along with the latest trend or the latest fad.
I really love this topic because I feel so many people fell victim
Oh,
of
yes.
other individuals, but some people fell victim to themselves as well. And I actually wanted to quote something that you wrote. So you published this spiritual bypassing, a persistent shadow of the New Age movement. You published this in 2022. And you were saying, spiritual bypassing, exaggerated niceness, false positivity, detachment from real pain is a persistent shadow of the New Age movement. It isolates people from their full humanity and from authentic spirituality. Can you please expand on this a little bit?
Definitely. I think as a woman, the biggest one was, oh, nice girls or good girls don't get angry. Or if you're spiritual, you shouldn't get angry. Well, any movement that was going to change something in the system required our conscious anger. Rage is something else. Rage is like burning a field in nature and just tearing everything down. That's something that's out of control. But conscious anger is directed, it's intentional, and there is a purpose to it. It means that I've got my boundaries. You stepped over my boundaries. You're doing X, Y, Z that is not aligned with my values. And I will have the courage to step forward and say something about that. That is a no for me. If someone was being violent towards an animal or a child or a woman or anyone that was not able to protect themselves, I can tell you right now that I'm not going to go up and go, excuse me, can you please stop this because I'm so spiritual and I want to be nice right now. No. I'm going to activate my Kali, and boy, will I come in. that fierce mother energy, which we need a lot more of right now on the planet. So that's just one example of the persona of the nice guy, the nice woman. I don't trust nice people. If you're constantly nice, you haven't done any work on yourself. I trust good people, and good people know what is right and what is wrong, and they're going to stand up for it. Nice people don't, because they don't even know who they are.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I'm always so skeptical about people who are constantly nice and they are friends with everyone.
Yep,
That's always suspicious to me.
me too.
And I was wondering if it's coming from my own insecurity. Is it coming from something that, I'm afraid of, and I'm just like trying to find things that could be a potential source of danger to me, or something just really doesn't sit well with this individual?
And I have so much compassion, because we've all been there at some point in our lives, because we got rewarded for being good or nice when we're at school with our parents, with our teachers. But there is a time where we have to grow those parts of ourselves up and have the courage once again. And it doesn't have to be that we're rude to people, but it really takes courage to be authentic and say, hey, that didn't feel good. What happened just there doesn't feel right for me. I'm going to have to share something with you, and it may be uncomfortable. And that person then has an opportunity, if you care about that relationship, to go, I'm going to meet you there, or I'm just going to stay where I am at. And this is where we have choice and go, okay, I love you. Doesn't mean that our friendship is over, but it's going to be here. It takes a great amount of work to show up and be authentic. It takes a great amount of courage, because not everyone is going to like us. Not everyone is going to like our boundaries, especially when our boundaries have we've allowed them to be violated. No one, if you've always said yes and then you start saying no, no one's going to like that. No one. But we really owe ourselves that respect, to really practice the no muscle. No, no. Simple as that.
It reminded me to something that I recently read about, which was about no matter who you are, no matter how you are, no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone who is going to dislike you. There's always going to be someone who is going to like you. So they might as well just dislike you for the person who you actually are. So you can drop the mask, just be you, and there's still going to be someone who is going to dislike you, and that's okay. But it's really, really hard, especially nowadays, I feel, when everything just seems to be perfect. I go online, everybody is perfect. Perfect look, perfect voice, perfect career, perfect, perfect, perfect. And I feel that we are entering into this age where everything seems perfect, yet most of it is not even real, right? Talking about AI. Would you have any advice to people who already find this challenging? Like how to navigate this age right now?
Let's start a movement where it's like, okay, every day, let's wake up in the morning and begin the day with some simple practices. How can I show up today in my most authentic nature? How can I challenge myself today on social media if I'm not feeling good, or I'm not in my most vibrant self, just to show up exactly as I am and speak into that? It doesn't mean that I'm going to talk about it ad nauseum, because I'm not here to be going into that victim and supporting that victim energy. But it's like, we all know that this is happening. AI music, AI artists, AI personalities, influencers, and some of these influencers are fantastic, but they're paid to play a role, many of them. I would love to see a movement, and I do see it happening more and more, where people are really just showing up as they are, and we're craving it. I hope that we never lose the fascination of what it is to be deeply flawed in our humanity, which makes us also uniquely beautiful. When someone reveals their story, and it's such a deep story, we all know that we are just mesmerized by someone's vulnerability, by someone's experience, by someone's, I made this mistake and I paid the price for it. I went down, like we are so hardwired where in our hearts to connect with another individual, another human's heart. And it usually in those moments where we're deeply authentic, not in the performance. It's easy to perform. Any monkey, any animal can perform a trick. It's not that easy to be really seated in our authenticity and go, hey guys, hey, I'm really feeling like this today because this happened. And this is an edge for me because I feel vulnerable in sharing it because we're opening ourselves to potential attack. And that is a very strong instinct. We're hardwired to survive. So to open ourselves to vulnerability is opening ourselves to threat, and it's real. But this is where, coming back to what you said, knowing who you are and actually being able to look in your eyes every day and say, hey, I really genuinely love you and I've got your back. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world, what's going on in my circle, I love you and I genuinely care for you and I've got your back. Well done. That is the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself every day is I love you, and no matter who doesn't like you, I respect you and I believe in you and I've got your back and I'm going to keep sharing my truth.
So first, choosing ourselves and showing up for ourselves.
That's it.
That's an amazing practice for people to
Yeah.
do because we so externalize everything. And the last person we actually take care of is us
I know.
because we want the validation, we want to feel useful, we want to look a certain way. So we externalize so much of our value. And then the most important person who we talked about before is us. And then everything just comes from there. So start the day with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I dress up for myself every day, whether I have client meetings or not. When I go and see someone, I will dress up. Why? Not because I'm seeking validation, because I love to dress up my physical vehicle and feel beautiful. It's not for anybody else, it's for myself. And, as I always say to people, your level of self-worth and self-love will always be reflected in your environments, in the friendships you keep, and what you say yes to, and more importantly, what you say no to. Have a look around you. And if something is not in alignment with how you would expect it to be, then you need to reassess yourself because we are at the center of every single situation we find ourselves in. It's nobody else. So if you're finding yourself in situations that are reflecting something back to you that is not aligned, then go back within and either you need to say something to an individual or you decide that I don't want this in my life anymore. Simple as that. Is that a reflection of my self-worth or my self-loathing? Is any relationship a reflection of my self-love and how much I value myself? It doesn't mean being sycophantic. It doesn't mean we don't get challenged. Or is it a reflection of my self-loathing? Simple question.
Simple question. But I can also see why it can be challenging for some people to answer it.
Yeah, that's right. Because people, we love to feel comfortable. And sometimes that friend that you've had since 5 years old, you have a loyalty to that friend, but you're no longer in alignment, but you keep them because of this old friendship that has been cultivated. But unless that person is also growing, it's going to be very difficult to keep an intimate connection long term. that is not based on something from the past. It doesn't mean we have to let go of old friends, but if they're not growing and you are, it is going to be challenging eventually.
Yeah, and we talked about some of the things that you do for other people to help them through this transition or just step
Yes.
into their own power. And I think I read on your website as well that you also call yourself a spiritual midwife.
Yes.
Yes. So, because spiritual midwife, if we think about just like literal birth, there is this moment when there is this intense transition from like one world to another. If I'm correct, they also call it the ring of fire.
Oh yeah. I can tell you from personal experience.
Yeah. So what does the ring of fire looks like in a spiritual
Yes.
initiation? And how do you guide people to stay in that heat rather than just retreating to safety?
Okay, great. There's so much juice in this. Not many people will come to a spiritual path because something great has happened in their lives, or come into a wanting to step onto a path of inner awakening. You know, it usually happens through a dark night of the soul. Something's happened in my life. I've gone through a death, or I've gone through a divorce, a separation, I've gone through an illness. My identity, as we've shared before, has been shattered. And in this moment, we start asking questions. And it becomes very difficult. Things become very challenging. It becomes painful. We're sick of the story. We're sick of ourselves. I need to make a change. I don't know how. Now, this dark night of the soul, which at some point in our lives, most of us will have, and most Western medicine will treat it like depression. Here's a pill, you'll get over it. Well, at this point, for me, I see it as an opportunity. And the opportunity is this: you can stay stuck in your old life and choose to be a victim of your circumstances, which at some points we've all felt like a victim. And sometimes we literally are a victim of circumstance. Or, and it leads into this spiritual and identity crisis, or we can really have the courage to find someone who has gone through something, some deep things, and they have moved towards the other side of that, or they've on the other side of, they've claimed those gifts of the dark, and they've understood that there was a lot of teachings and there was a lot of medicine, and what I mean by medicine is power in what happened. So what I would like to share with people in one simple sentence is I support people to birth their or to come back to their authentic nature, which means that you're going to be stripped of everything that you thought that you were or that you are, in order to come back to that for some people. And like birth, it is not easy, and it wasn't meant to be, because we're not going to value something that is easy, that's given to us easily, not usually. And so it means going through that tunnel, that very dark tunnel sometimes, and knowing that there is someone walking beside you with a torch that says, I've been there, really, I've been there, and I'm on the other side. And these are the things that you need on a moment to moment basis, sometimes moment to moment. Not, oh, I'm going to plan for the next 5 years. No, moment to moment is sometimes all we've got the capacity for. But to trust that on the other side of a very difficult and challenging time, as long as you don't get stuck in being a victim, and that is the important part, because Western society loves to celebrate the victim story. As long as you move beyond that and you have the courage and you do the deep inner work, you will get through, and you can get through anything, and find the gold in the gifts of the dark. Find the courage, find the resilience, find that your heart, contrary to most popular opinion, that it doesn't doesn't have to stay shut after it's been broken open. It can continue to break open and not closed, and that you continue to say yes to life, and that you can hold more love because of that, and that you can hold more compassion because that your heart has broken open to a million pieces. I'm so grateful for everything, Adam, for everything that I've journeyed through, because I've become an infinitely better person, and I genuinely enjoy life so much more because I know that life can change in an instant. In an instant, you can be having the most extraordinary experience, and actually change happens in an instant, in a moment, all change. And so if we can understand that change can happen in a moment, whether it's seen as good change or something that is absolutely tragic, then we can know that to get out of those dark spaces, you can do it moment by moment, just moment by moment sometimes. And suddenly it's like, I'm waking up one morning and I don't have the heaviness in my heart. Thank you. Thank you. And then the moments of feeling good come back, and then it's time for the next journey.
And this is what you help people through.
That's what I help people through. I really support people to come back to their authentic nature. And not only that, anyone who knows me in my personal life, I am the biggest champion of people. I really see people's potential. And it's a gift that I've always had, hasn't always been good in past relationships because I've seen the potential. Now I can see the potential and also marry it with reality and see where someone is at. But my goodness, we are all sparks of the divine. If you have not really owned that and understand that there is nothing that you cannot create if you put your heart and your mind and your soul to it, then you're missing the point of being here. Really, we've been giving this physical life and this human experience to experience everything that it means to be human. Gone is the time where you need to self-actualize by just sitting in a monastery. We are at a time where self-actualization understands the balance of time alone and time in community and time with others, and experiencing it all and not getting attached to it. And this is good, this is bad. Of course, everything needs to be consensual in terms of that, in terms of is this good or is this bad. But in terms of yourself, if you think a piece of chocolate is bad, it will be bad for you, I promise you. But if you're going to take that piece of chocolate into your mouth and go, this feels great, it's nourishing me, thank you so much, then that's a whole different way of living in the world. Obviously, you're not going to eat junk food 24/7, but I'm talking about truly, people, look at your mindset. It is so powerful.
And I can definitely second what you just shared, that you are the person who champions others. Because I feel that with myself as well, that ever since I arrived here, like I feel seen, I feel encouraged, I feel championed for everything who I am, how I am, what I do, how I do. And I just feel fucking amazing. And it's because like you really give that to people. And it's not just you, it's also your husband as well.
Yeah.
So it's such a powerful combination that you guys have. And me as someone who's just walking in here, I'm like, I already feel better. And I didn't even have to do much. But it really helps me to see things about myself that I may have not even seen before.
Thank you, Adam. And the key point here is that I am not seeing anything in you that is not true. Like, it's not like I'm saying, hey, you can run for president. Actually, that would be really good if you did, though. Because look what's out there right now. But it's like I'm not sharing with someone that's not, for me, authentic. I'm not saying, oh, you're amazing, just because I want something from that individual. It's like, genuinely, I see these qualities in you, and I want you to really hear that and to feel that, and to know that you are being seen for who you are, because isn't that the greatest gift? And in what were those creatures, the blue creatures?
The Navis
One of the
from
most,
Avatar.
yeah, Avatar, one of the most beautiful moments. I don't know, I can't remember anything about their names, but when she said, I see you, what a gift, and I feel like that's one of my superpowers. I really see people. I see people, and in that, I want to continue to encourage those parts of themselves that are going to support them in living their highest creative potential.
And I also know that you run different kind of programs, different accreditation programs and certifications and all of that, which is somewhat a modern adaptation of this like very ancient knowledge and practices. So what I was wondering about that, how do you find a good balance that you still make this work accessible to people, but you are not turning into another wellness commodity?
Oh yes, okay, how do I make, because I keep everything very grounded, and animism, shamanism, these earth-centered practices, when it doesn't become performative or for show or for festivals or things like that, when you're walking this path authentically, it is very grounded. It's a very simple path. It's a path of connection. It's a path of understanding where you stand in the web of life, in the circle of life, and it's living by those values. So how do I keep that from not being woo-woo or not being out there? Simple. I am super grounded, and I share it in ways that are very, very practical, where people can bring these practices into their everyday lives, whether they're a lawyer, whether they're a doctor, whether they're a CEO. It's like this work, and it's got nothing to do with religion. It is literally a path and a way of being in life and being in connection with life. That's the key. I offer it in a way that people can use these practices every single day to support their lives, to support their relationships, to support their health and well-being.
And what are some of the programs that you are currently running?
Well, I'm a teacher of the shamanic arts, so I run an internationally accredited shamanic practitioner training that has been accredited with the International Energetic Healing Association. And again, with this, and I wanted it to be accredited so that I could share something that was cross-cultural, core shamanic practices that people could use, whether they're a yoga teacher, whether they're a workshop facilitator, a medicine person, a ceremonialist, whether you work in a company, whether you're a CEO. And then I've also developed recently, which I'm about to share for the first time in June, uh, a shamanic space holder, ceremonialist, and embodied leadership facilitation training. And that is really taking these practices to the next level so that those people that are facilitators and serious workshop facilitators can take their work to the next level. I also run medicine retreats. I'm a Wachumera, so I work with the cactus of San Pedro with deep respect. I've been working with this cactus for over 18 years, and I've also trained in learning how to serve this medicine by a Peruvian medicine man. And I do a lot of one-on-one work with women specifically, and I'm in the process of currently writing a book. So, and I've also got an amazing training that I've done with Dr. Lauren, that I've co-created with Dr. Lauren McDonald, who is a psychiatrist as well as a psychedelic therapist, as well as a retreat leader. I've co-created for the first time ever. We have 15 wisdom keepers and teachers from all over the world that we've invited in. It's a 6-month training, hybrid online with a 1-week immersion in Peru, working with psychedelic psilocybin medicine as well as the medicine of Wachuma. So, all of this work, which is not work, it's my life. I don't see a difference between work and life. It's all the same thing. These are some of the offerings that I'm sharing, and I'm so grateful and so humbled by every single person that sits in the circle with me, because I always share with everyone, Adam, that the people that sit in my circles are my greatest teachers. Ultimately, life is the greatest teacher, but I would never put myself on top of anybody, above anybody, because I know that as soon as you start blowing air, smoke within yourself, then you're not on the path. You've missed the point of sharing this work and actually being, in good relationship, in right relationship in your life with everything around it.
I see you. Like I really do. Like all the work that you do, how you show up for yourself, for your husband, for your friends, for me. And I personally experienced your medicine, not all of it, a part of it. And what it also got me wondering as well, like these are the things that you do for other people. What are the things that you do for yourself? So I prepared a couple of fire questions for you. So short questions, short answers, whatever comes to mind.
Got it.
Yeah. If you could get everyone to understand just one thing about themselves, what would it be?
How deeply loved they are by all life.
What is your personal non-negotiable when it comes to staying in peak performance?
My daily morning practice of just centering myself, having a moment to myself. So I believe, yeah, for myself, it's just my daily morning practice. Sometimes that's dancing, sometimes that's walking outside and just taking a moment under a tree. Sometimes that's meditation. But uh, that is a non-negotiable, because if I don't set up myself well with intention in the day, then I'm actually living a day that is not anchored in intention and in deep presence and groundedness.
And what is your number one practice to stay connected to yourself?
A daily embodiment practice. And that could be meditation, connection to the earth, connection to the land around me. Sometimes I like to walk outside and just be in nature and connect with the world around me. Sometimes it's going to be a walk around the block. Sometimes it's a real shaking and movement meditation practice.
And also just to follow up on some of the things we talked about, that you work with a lot of successful people, very wealthy individuals, successful entrepreneurs. What is one thing every entrepreneur should stop doing today if they care about their spiritual journey?
Worrying about what everyone else thinks. Let your freak flag fly. Just be completely and 150% you, and then everything will move from that space. Everything will flow from that space. Hello, everybody. I want you to introduce you to my beautiful little girl. So yes, that would be my one thing to say. Just you do you. Be the most authentic and radical you, and let your freak flag fly. I mean, seriously, how will the other wild and eccentric and wonderful people find you if you're, hello, my name is Penny, and this is the type of work that I offer in the world, and this is who you are outside of that space? Who is going to find you? You're never going to align with the people that are going to be able to support you in your work, the people that are going to be able to support you in your life, or you know, your helpmate, your love mate, your meat mate, your, as in meat mate. You're never going to find the person or the people that are for you if you don't show up and be authentically you. And that is allowing your eccentricities to be seen as well.
Well, that's also a takeaway for me as well, for sure. But yeah, one more question here. If all of your contacts on your social media were deleted,
Yes.
and you could only follow one single person, who would you follow?
And I could only follow one single person. Zach Bush comes to mind in this moment. Dr. Zach Bush.
Who is he?
He is an amazing doctor. He's an environmentalist. He really talks about the connection between our bodies and the earth, about illness and the earth. I mean, for anyone, you know, for anyone who wants to follow someone who is inspirational and is sharing something that is so profound, I highly recommend following Dr. Zach Bush. That's a plug for you, brother.
What is one thing that you learned about yourself that first you didn't want to accept it, but then it became your greatest asset?
That I am absolutely fierce when it comes to things and people that I love. And I will protect at all costs anything that I love. And now that includes myself. I am fiercely, and I have become fiercely protective of myself because I've come into that space of absolute, you know, and it's obviously a process. It can always deepen, but I've come into a really good space of self-love. And so recently I've realized how protective of myself I've become. So that means I tolerate pretty much zero BS these days. And I will share what I need to with an individual if something doesn't feel aligned for me anymore, or if someone has crossed my boundaries, or something is not aligned with my values. That's what I've really learned about myself. I've really learned to have my own back in a way that I've never had before in my life. I used to let a lot of things slip away because I didn't want that confrontation, or I didn't want to address something, or I didn't want to see something because it was too painful. So I've really learned to have my own back at all costs. And the cost is never myself anymore.
And what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
To turn towards the sun and never look back. And it was from a Balinese healer many years ago when I'd just gone through that experience of losing my son in childbirth. And like all good medicine people, he spoke very simply. And hear what he said. Turn towards the sun and never look back. And I've always lived by those words since then. And I love that. It was so simple and yet so profound. And it contained everything in that. Obviously, it's not literal, but turn towards hope, the direction of the east, the direction of new beginnings, like the beginning of new day, and trust the process, because life doesn't play in reverse, only up here. Life is everything that's in the moment and everything that is ahead of us. And from this moment, that's the only thing we can change. Is we can change our mindset, we can change the way that we live only in this moment. So I loved that piece of advice.
Aho.
Aho.
So earlier we talked about drums and different kind of
Yes,
musical instruments.
I
I
can.
see that you have your drum here, so I actually wanted to ask you if you could
Yes.
play something for me and for the audience as well, that they could maybe listen to every day for the next 21 days. That's going to help them to get back to themselves easier.
Mm. So I think what you're inviting me into something that's really simple, that's not so a very simple practice, which we call the hollow bone in shamanism, which is really about like emptying something simple that you and I did at the beginning is emptying any heaviness, any thoughts, any feelings, giving it back to the earth, connecting in with that aspect of, that aspect of you that is beyond time and space, and then just coming back to the heart. Coming back to the heart. How about we just do something really simple like that? And you may not want to, and I'm just going to bring my little bells as well. We'll see what comes out in the space, but this is a very simple hollow bone practice that you can do that is very good for grounding and connection every day. Whether you're starting the day, finishing the day, whether you're about to go into a business meeting or you're about to talk on stage or you want to do a podcast or share something on social media, this is a wonderful way of just coming into yourself. Okay? I'm going to begin by calling in the allies that are all around us in this moment, all around each one of us. Thank you, Adam. Calling in our benevolent allies into the space, our spiritual guides, our totem animals, honoring the land upon which we stand. Bringing your awareness into your heart space. And from this space, imagining the image of the rising sun with those colors of gold and orange. Imagining that this light fills your entire body. And as it fills your body, it removes and clears all those things, thoughts, feelings that are heavy, that are confusing and upsetting. And with your intention, this light, along with all that heaviness, moves down your body, down through the base of your spine, all the way down through the many layers of the earth and connecting in with the deepest part of the earth, this beautiful molten crystalline core. And feeling this this earth energy that is grounding and stabilizing beneath you, we're going to bring it up all the way through your central spine, through the crown of your head, connecting in with the part of you that is timeless. The I am of your soul's essence, your highest aspect of self. The aspect of you that knows and sees all. Knowing that everything is always going to turn out in the way that it is meant to for you. Because life is always working for us, not against, no matter how challenging it looks and feels on the outside. And with this connection, with this highest aspect of yourself, perhaps there is a feeling or a sentence, a word or an image that comes forward for you to support you on your journey. And now bringing this awareness to the center of your heart, this beautiful heart of yours. The I am. In any moment today, in this moment on for the rest of my life, what would love do now? Taking a deeper than normal breath in and breathing out again. Placing both of your hands over your heart, giving yourself some love. Giving some gratitude for everything that we have in any moment, in every moment. If thank you was the only prayer that we said every day, that would be enough. Thank you. Thank you for this life. Thank you, Adam. Thank you to each one of you. My heartfelt gratitude for this moment, this conversation, this engaging topics, for your love, for your care, for your presence, Adam. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world. It was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you. Thank you, darling.
I thank you.
Köszönöm szépen, drágám. Köszönöm szépen.
This was beautiful. Would you have one last final message before we close off the space?
I really, really love this what would love do now? Because whether you're in the middle of an argument, whether you're wanting to make a deep decision in any, thank you, Luna, my cat, for jumping in the window in the middle of this podcast, in any decision that we're making in life, in any way that we would like to show up in life and show up with another person, especially when we're triggered. What would love do now? And then that continues to orient us towards kindness. And boy, do we need more of that in the world. Love and kindness, really.
Aho.
Aho.